Everyone. It is 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Monday, January 10th, 2022. We're going to call the board and stakeholder meeting of Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council to order. Let me pull the agenda up here. Share my screen. We just talked about how
it's up already.
It is up.
Yeah.
That's even better. I'll just open it up for myself. Excuse me. Students, any students in attendance, please enter your name, your school, and your teacher into the Q&A. We will keep a record of that and then make sure the information gets back to your teacher. Item number 2 would be to solicit any comments on non-agenda items from our attendees. These are not board members, but anyone in attendance in the meeting who has anything to say about anything that we're not already talking about, please do so now. And I see a hand raised in attendees. I'm going to go ahead and ask Lori Jacobs to unmute. Oh, sorry, Lori. Go again. We clicked at the same time.
Now cut that out. Thank you, Chris. Hi, board. I just wanted to mention that the 2022 homeless count is happening on Wednesday, January 26th from 8 to 11 p.m. As of now, it's still moving forward. They are still short of volunteers. You do not need to have any experience. They will have a video training for you. There's an app where you can download and see a video, and the app will actually, you'll record the count there. But I wanted to let you know that if anybody's concerned about safety with protocol with COVID, that you could create your own team. So you could be a team leader, pick somebody that you feel safe being in the car with, a relative or a friend, and you never do get out of the car. This is a visual homeless count. And we really need people to step up and consider doing this. Not only are you part of the solution, but you're part of the effort to get the resources needed, because the resources are based on the count numbers, and we did not have an in-person count last year. They only had a shelter count. So if you have any questions, let me know. The website is called theycountwillyou.org. And there's a link to that on our website. And for other people listening in, there's a link to it in the homelessness liaison report. And that's just it. I really ask that people really consider being a part of this. We need more volunteers. We only have about half the number that we need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. Are there any other comments on non-agenda items? Hearing none, let me double check. Good. All right, then we can move on to item number 3, which is public officials reports. Do we have
Chris, I can do the roll call. Somehow I got booted, but I'm back.
Oh, okay. I've been having a similar problem. Yeah, go ahead. Before we proceed, let's do roll call.
John Barbera.
Yes.
Vic Christensen here. John DeMiglio. John DeMiglio.
I say here, do you hear me?
You're very low.
Yeah.
I said here, do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
That's
now.
better. I got you. Dan Dixon.
Here.
Craig Goldfarb.
Here.
Cynthia Gagne.
Here.
Christian Guzman.
Here.
Gwen Henry is excused. Melanie Lebrec.
Here.
Kelly Miller is excused. Alex Norman.
Here.
Thomas Norman.
Present.
Adrian Ada Reyes Cruz. David Semperio.
I'm here.
Angela
I'm here.
Sumner.
Here.
Chris Valle.
Here.
Okay, we have 13. That is a quorum.
Very good. Mr. President, sorry, would you like to preside over the meeting, or should I continue, or how shall we?
Yeah.
proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So as Mr. Vice President said earlier, before we began the roll call, we're going to move on to the public official report. So if there are any public officials or the staff of any public officials or any department heads or department representatives for the city, you can raise your hand now.
Excuse me if I may, we usually when we did public comment, we let the board members make public comments also. And this wasn't said this time. Is it possible that I can make a public comment?
Mr. Secretary, is there an item for board member comment at the end? Because if there is, we'll just hold over to that since we already
Yes,
kind of.
there is an item later for board members to speak on non-agenda items.
So we'll do it then, since Mr. Vice President already moved on to number 3, and then we'll.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
I do see Octaviano in attendees with his hand raised, so I'm going to go ahead and allow him to talk. Ask to unmute. Go ahead, Octaviano.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. I didn't expect to come on so soon, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy 2022. This is Octaviano with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. I hope everybody's doing well and healthy and enjoyed your holidays and your New Year celebration. So I do have a few updates. Excuse me. You should have received a few days ago your Neighborhood Council Profiles report. So I'm going to breeze through my report. For any details and links, you can certainly go to your profiles, and it's filled with great information as well as active hyperlinks that are shaded in blue as a font color, and you click on it and it directs you to the appropriate web pages for further information. The Core Institute module trainings, the 3 that the department hosted in the last year, are available as recordings. So if you weren't able to attend these optional but highly recommended trainings that cover the basics of neighborhood councils, how to run meetings, about the legislative process, etc., your NC Profiles for January has those hyperlinks again. They had them in November, but the department decided to place them on again for neighborhood council board members to get access and be reminded of these great tools for capacity building and learning. As you're aware, the Planning 101 and the Anti-Bias Learning for Employees training deadline was January 1st. Thank you to those that completed it. We do have neighborhood councils that are outstanding with those. So for the ABLE training, if your bylaws do specify further requirements for board members to complete their trainings and consequences for that, we ask neighborhood councils to please defer to your bylaws for any further action against those board members that have not completed the ABLE training. So if you have any questions about that, we can certainly follow up offline. Which reminds me that the bylaws amendments deadline is coming up pretty quick, April 1st. So just a quick reminder that if you have any plans to change, modify, amend your bylaws, specifically with some urgency, if you have plans to change your board structure, which requires the commission review, please do so as soon as possible. Get that started. Let me know if you have any questions about the process, accessing the application, etc. Tomorrow, moving on in terms of policy, the departments and the city clerk's elections division will be presenting reports on the 2020-2021 neighborhood council elections to the city council's Arts, Parks, Health, Education, and Neighborhoods Committee. The meeting begins tomorrow at 2 p.m. And to access the agenda, please go to the city clerk's office. If you get lost in the abyss of the neighborhood or the LA City website and city clerks, let me know and I can search that link for you and send it your way if you're interested in attending or listening in. The commission is still reviewing the digital communications policy as well as the proposed amendments to the 2016 Code of Conduct policy. So just a quick heads up on that. And that actually concludes my report, folks. So if you have any comments, any questions you want me to take back to the department, let me know. Again, it's Octaviano with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Thank you so much, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Excellent. Do we have any other representatives? We have no other we'll move on to our first responders report. So one last
Mr.
call.
President.
I have a hand up for Octaviano.
Yeah, we had questions for Octaviano.
Oh, okay, great. Go ahead, Mr. DeMaglio.
Hi, first I want to start off by apologizing for the board for what happened on the last meeting to Cynthia Gagne. And I want to know from Octaviano, how's this being addressed? And how can we not have this happen again? I apologize for the children that had to hear it, all the other women that had to hear it. It needs to be addressed. I want to see what Octaviano has to say about that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Board Member DeMiglio, thank you so much for your comments. Unfortunately, I'm not able to dive into that particular matter. In general, we try to stay away from discussing or going too deep into particular matters that pertain to the board, especially legal ones. We can certainly have a discussion offline, one-on-one on your particular experience or views, anything that, and this invitation goes out to the whole board. Always feel free to reach out to me, to Thomas Sun, to Raquel, to any of the supporting agencies, city clerk, city attorney's office, whenever you're experiencing some difficulties, some challenges. If you need some clarification on resources or issues, don't ever hesitate to email or call us on a one-on-one basis, especially for time-sensitive matters. But Mr. DeMiglio, an invitation for you to you can certainly schedule a time to talk to each other by phone and listen. You and I haven't talked, but we can definitely make time to discuss it a little bit more. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I did leave a message on your answer machine today.
Oh, I appreciate it. I didn't get it, and I will certainly follow up with you and schedule a time. Thank you, Mr. Domingo. No, apologies for not getting back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Octaviano. Appreciate it.
Mr. Vice President, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thanks. It's real brief, just nuts and bolts thing. Octaviano, I am having trouble reconciling the Cornerstone transcript for trainings. I believe that I may be out of compliance in some areas. However, on Cornerstone, it doesn't show anything available, which means that I can't, and I don't know how to do the trainings if Cornerstone doesn't show them to me. So I'm not sure if I'm in compliance or not. And if I'm not, then I'm not sure how to get into compliance. It's been an ongoing problem.
We just need you to do ethics. So far, everything else is good to go. But if you're having challenges with accessing, let's definitely talk tomorrow or sometime this week and see what challenges you're having to
well,
getting
the challenge is that it doesn't show anything available to perform. So I don't see ethics even mentioned, not to mention available to perform.
Okay. You might be experiencing what other board members have been experiencing, which is kind of the inability to kind of locate the link to renew your training, which is kind of I think it's more of a visual aesthetics challenge on the side of Cornerstone than it is from the board members' responsibility to be able to figure that out. So let me see if I can get the instructions to clarify that and send it your way. All right, Mr. Wyatt?
Thanks very much. Yes, that would be fine.
All right, thank you.
And I see Cynthia's hand raised. You're muted.
I gave you a call, Octaviano, over a week ago, and it's probably almost 2 weeks now, and you still haven't gotten back to me. I'd appreciate it if you give me a call back.
Thank you, Board Member Gagne. I did have a discussion with Tom earlier today, and you will be getting a response back from the department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then. Thank you, Octaviano. Do we have any other representatives from public officials or elected officials? If not, let's move on then to our first responders reports. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on LAPD or the Port Police? Okay. Madam Treasurer, when's the next CPAB?
Not until February, because I just got word today that I guess they're having a big shakeup. There's going to be a new captain, there's going to be a new communications officer, and another position also was filled. I can't remember which one. So there's like a big changeover going on.
This is for Harbor?
Huh?
Is this for the Harbor Station?
Yeah. We're getting a captain and everything.
Well, we look forward to hearing an update on that then in February, hopefully.
Thanks.
So we'll move on now to the next item before us, which will be a presentation from Phyllis 66. And I think we might have Ken Dami here. So he's gonna make a 10-minute presentation for us, and then we might have time for some questions afterwards. So go ahead, Mr. Ken Dami, we'll recognize you now.
All right, thank you, President Guzman and council members. Can you hear me okay?
You're good.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I also have two colleagues of mine that should be in the waiting room. One is Mike Bechtel, and the other one is Sean Hunt. I was wondering if they could also be let in.
They're up.
Yeah, looks like I'm in.
Okay, great. So let me begin. Thank you again, and Happy New Year to everybody. I'm reporting out on three significant things that happened last year. One was that the refinery had one of the biggest turnarounds that it's ever had in its history, and that occurred March to May of last year. There was over $100 million of investment into the operation to continue to ensure safe and reliable operations. And over that period of time, we also had an additional workforce of about 2,500 people, in addition to the over 800 employees and then over 100 contractors that we normally have into the refinery. And a lot of those were, craftsmen from California. The second thing I wanted to report out on was that there was a significant refinery rule that was passed by the Air District for Southern California, and it was addressing the reduction in NOx emissions, nitrogen oxide. Over the next 12 years for Phillips, for our refinery here, we're going to be investing over $300 million into the operation. That will be putting in mission control devices to reduce NOx emissions. The overall result is going to be about approximately 600 tons a year of NOx emissions, and that's about an 80% reduction from where we are today. The third thing that I wanted to report out on was that in 2021, we continue preparations for a MOTEMS project that we have at the wharf. The project is to improve structures at the wharf and comply with marine oil terminal engineering and maintenance standards, to conduct work without exceeding regulated allowable emission thresholds, and to work in a manner that reflects environmental stewardship. To talk more about this project, I'd like to introduce our environmental manager, Mike Bechtel, to share some additional information.
Thanks, Ken. I assume everybody can hear me.
I'm Mike Bechtel. I'm the environmental manager here at the refinery. So Phillips 66 has been providing details to the Port of Los Angeles for the last few years now to describe a project that we'd like to do in order for them to complete the secret review for the MOTEMS project improvements that Ken mentioned down at our marine terminal. So the Port of LA recently completed a project milestone with the submittal of the CEQA document for public comment. And the CEQA review has concluded that the project requires what's called a mitigated negative declaration of its impact. And so I did want to take a little bit of time to quickly describe the project. So first off, MOTEMS, as Ken mentioned, it is a state requirement for upgrading oil terminals to meet, for example, the newest earthquake and fire protection standards. And so we've been wanting to do this project for some time now. Phillips has 2 docks at our marine terminal located at the Port of LA. One dock is called berths 150 and 151, which was the original dock, which was constructed in 1919. And it's actually been out of service since the year 2009. And all of its equipment has been decommissioned. So if you look at that berth, you'll see a wharf out there and no activity on it. So the second dock that we operate is called berths 148 and 149, and that one is currently in operation and it serves our refinery operations. So this project that I'm talking about entails demolishing the out of service berths 150 and 151 to give us room to construct a modernized MOTEMS compliant berth. And once we have that berth completed, we will be taking berths 148 and 149 out of service. It'll be shut down, its equipment's going to be cleaned and decommissioned, and it'll no longer be used for oil transfer operations associated with the refinery. So while this marine terminal does service the refinery, it's worth pointing out that the refinery throughput itself is set by existing air district permit emission limits that are already in place on the key refinery equipment, such as heaters and boilers. And also, as currently the case, the marine terminal does not receive any crude oil at all at that location, which means that the MOTEMS project is not associated with any refinery crude throughput expansion. At the same time, it has the benefit of modernizing the marine terminal to reduce the risk of potential environmental impacts associated with any non-MOTEMS compliant equipment, which will actually benefit the harbor community. So we're essentially modernizing the dock that we're using is what it's going to amount to. So lastly, as is currently practiced at the marine terminal, it's worth pointing out that this project does not, and it will not provide any LPG handling capability. In fact, our facility really has no means of directly supplying material to the Rancho LNG facility, and therefore this project has nothing at all to do with that facility. So what the CEQA document does do is it details a comparison between the facility's baseline emissions as of 2019 and post-project emissions. And the neg deck shows that the criteria pollutant emissions increases associated with the work will be below the level of significance requiring an environmental impact report. So many other potential environmental impacts are also evaluated and found to be either no impact or non-significant impact. And you can read about those calculations in great detail in the mitigated negative declaration document that's open for public comment. So having said that, I'd like to introduce Sean Hunt, who is our site's remediation manager, and he can discuss any remediation activity that is taking place at the marine terminal.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Fantastic. Happy New Year, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and give this opportunity to kind of talk about my life's work. So over the last 2.5 decades, Phillips 66 has been working closely with the Los Angeles Regional Water Control Board and has conducted numerous site investigations and various remedial events at the Los Angeles Marine Terminal. Phillips 66 actively conducts environmental remediation and groundwater monitoring under the direction of the Los Angeles Regional Water Control Board approved plans. Through our efforts, Phillips 66 is in full regulatory compliance with the Los Angeles Regional Water Control Board. In relationships to the project that Mike was just talking about, Phillips 66 will ensure and make it a priority to maintain environmental compliance following all federal, state, local guidelines associated with the handling of material that will be generated during this activity. For example, any soil or groundwater that's encountered or excavated or removed during the construction activities will be properly containerized, characterized, and then managed accordingly. In addition, Phillips 66 will maintain full compliance with all stormwater pollution prevention plan requirements to ensure that all excavated material is confined to the boundaries of the project area. And just in closing, I'd say both Phillips 66 as a company and I individually have a great working relationship with our environmental oversight agencies, partners and landlords, Port of Los Angeles. And we look forward to and will work to accomplish a safe and proper construction project. And with that, I'll end my remarks. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, great. Ken, did you want to continue or are you finished as well?
Oh, no, I'm finished as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's see if there are some questions from the community or the council. One moment.
I see John DeMeglio's hand. And Craig Goldfarb.
Go ahead, Mr. Goldfarb.
Hi, later in this meeting, we're going to be discussing, there's a draft letter and there'll be discussion. I was hoping you guys would be able to stick around for it and give some comment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. DeMeglio.
Yeah, I have a few questions. The 150 dock is not operational, but that's the one you're gonna vamp and bring it back to normal. Is there a pipeline from that dock going to the refinery, straight to the refinery? And what are you gonna be unloading at that dock? And the other stuff that's being unloaded or stored on the mainland there at your refinery, that's more toxic? Is that what's going to be pumping out of that 150 dock? And I wanted to know, how far do the fumes go into the community?
So let me start. I'm sure my colleagues are gonna have some input on this as well, but I just wanted to preface this that there are other people that are part of this project that work for Phillips 66, subject matter experts, and unfortunately we don't have them on the phone, and it probably warrants a further discussion that probably is something that would make more sense to work through the Port Committee or others and really sit down and have a lengthy discussion about everything to answer all the questions and get you that information. But with that said, I'll open it up to either of my two colleagues for a comment.
Yeah, this is Mike Bechtel. I'll comment on to answer the questions. And so the answer is yes, from the dock, as has been the case for probably 100 years, as we have pipelines going from that dock to both the Wilmington site and the Carson sites that we operate. And that's to allow us to load and unload various intermediate products, or for example, diesel fuel goes out across that dock, and various gas oils might go into the dock. It's basically an access we have for moving material on the water. If you're asking about changes in toxicity of what's being handled down there, this project really just describes the replacement of the existing dock, and so we're not looking at changing what we're bringing in over the water because of that. So essentially, this project should more or less be seen as a replacement in kind of the old dock for one that is NOTAMs and compliant with the California requirements.
All right, well, thank you for that response. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I have one other question.
Okay, Mr. Bagley, let's wait one moment while we confirm if we have other questions, and then we'll take one more from you, and then we'll move on.
Good. Thank you.
I do see Dan Dixon.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Dixon, go ahead.
Can you tell us what the acronym is? Is it MOTEMS? And is it an acronym?
Yes, MOTEMS is an acronym. It's short for Marine Oil Terminal Engineering and Maintenance Standards, which is a California state engineering requirement for oil terminals.
Thank you. Makes perfect sense. Thanks.
You're welcome.
One more, Mr. DeMeglio, go ahead.
See if I'm unmuted. One question is the pipeline from that 150 dock to the refinery on the mainland, is that pipeline going to be updated and changed? If you're saying that these things are over 100 years old or however old they are, or is that going to be updated?
The project does not address the pipelines which go to the refinery. Those pipelines happen to be under the jurisdiction of the Department of Transportation. So those lines are inspected and maintained per DOT requirements, and are there's requirements for hydro testing, as would most of the pipelines that we have out throughout the United States right now. So I would say there's no upgrades to the pipelines, but they are being managed per the DOT requirements, which are the highest requirements that pipelines adhere to.
Thank you for your response.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your time. And if you do want to stick around for that item, it's item 8B1, then that'd be good. If you want to stick around for that discussion. We'll move on now to the consent calendar then. So the consent calendar has several different items on it, and if anyone wants to request to remove an item and vote on it separately, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll take them all as one.
Mr. Chair, one quick comment, please.
Yes, Mr. Secretary.
For any students who are online, if you could please put your name, teacher, and school in the Q&A so we can record that for you. Thank you.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'd like to remove some, the minutes from the consent calendar.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar minus item A, which is the minutes?
I move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Secretary, will you do a roll call vote?
John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DeMeglio,
I recuse myself.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Aye.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
We have 12 ayes, 1 recusal. It carries.
I see the minute taker's hand is raised.
Oh,
Go ahead, Madam Minute Taker. Madam Minute Taker, did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I wasn't able to see who did the first or the second.
The first was Melanie Lebrec and the second was myself, Chris Valle.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, so now we're considering the minutes separately. Is there any comment? Mr. Craig Goldfarb, would you like to make a comment on it, or do you just want it to be considered it separately?
I wanted to make a comment or an addition because when I was going through it, there was no mention in the target discussion about that rather egregious moment when that awful slur was mentioned. And I think it should be in the minutes so it's documented.
Okay, any other comments on the minutes?
That's a motion. I'll second it.
I would just, I guess this is more of a question in terms of what is the procedure? Are there any particular content standards or what decides what material or information is appropriate or inappropriate, or are such distinctions made for the minutes? And are there any sort of standing rules, bylaws, done directives on that?
Who are you
I'm
asking?
not. Octaviano is here. Octaviano, are you? If Octaviano Rios is still here, he might want to speak on that. I'll speak briefly on personal experience being a minute taker in the past, that knowing the maker of the motion, a seconder, and the vote count is the essential item that I was trained to use, because it could be used for legal research or like a Public Records Act request if they want to know how the neighborhood council is spending the public's money, or if they want to know what our position was on an item such as that Phillips 66 item that's coming up. So kind of a direct transcription is somewhat irregular, and it's also recorded. Octaviano Rios, are you still here? Do you want to comment on that further?
Chair, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Sorry, folks, my phone's going off here with an alert. I'm sure everybody's getting this. Sorry about that. Octaviano with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. The commission policy doesn't require comments. It requires a minimum of board action and how each board member voted. So anything additional to that, I would refer you to your bylaws. For this particular matter, I'd advise the board to consult with the city attorney's office for that specific request. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I see Pat Nave had his hand raised, and I also see Cynthia Gagne has her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Nave.
Yeah, in California, a secretary maintains the official minutes of a group, and it records the official actions of the board. The comments like that ordinarily wouldn't be reflected in the minutes of an agency.
Okay, very good. Councilwoman Cynthia Gagne, go ahead.
Yes, you said it was in regards to votes. This incident or event happened during the vote. So I think it does reflect what was happening during the vote, and it should be recorded. And something else that was said before the votes was recorded, so this should also be recorded.
But it is not the vote itself, though, which I believe was.
It was part of the vote because it was right when I was talking.
I don't think there's a standard.
An open mic.
Well, when we're recording the tally of the votes on a particular motion, we don't necessarily record commentary or discussion prior to that. I think is what they're saying is that the count of the vote itself is recorded, not the discussion or any additional.
There was discussion before the vote and that was recorded. So you're doing two things. You're saying yes to one person and no to the other person.
Okay, let's come to order now. It's not exactly a back and forth, but we might take a couple more comments and then perhaps table it if we wanted.
I
Or
see
the
hands
city
from-
attorney op.
Sorry, I see
Yeah.
hands from Lori Jacobs, John DeMeglio, Dan Dixon, Craig Goldfarb.
Okay, let's take Laurie Jacobs, followed by Council Member Dan Dixon.
Thank you. I'm glad you're actually discussing the minutes because I was a little puzzled that sometimes comments are recorded and sometimes not. There was actually a long discussion on target and yet just a couple of random comments were mentioned. Normally, the minutes never include that. We just said board discussed this topic, you know, we weren't that specific. So I just would like to see some more consistency. And secondly, I think some of the people on the board need to perhaps better understand what the First Amendment is in freedom of speech. Okay, a stakeholder at any time can say whatever they want. Okay, they're not held to the same standards as a board member. If anybody's ever sat into a city council meeting or some others, the language is not pleasant. In this case, I believe it was actually a faux pas. It was not directed at the board, but regardless, it's a non-issue. But I would like to see some more consistency in the minutes, one way or the other. Thank you.
Councilmember Dixon.
May I suggest that since the comment in question is memorialized on the recording of the meeting, if nothing else as a placeholder that it happened, that in terms of tonight's discussion and pending any further discussion with the city, that we acknowledge that it exists and leave it at that for the moment in terms of this discussion.
Okay. Council Member Craig Goldfarb.
Yes, like I said, there was other comments made in there and this happened and we should stand up and say that it happened. I mean, it's opinions notwithstanding about what happened. This happened and it was very egregious. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a couple options now. We could either have a motion to amend the minutes. We could approve the minutes as they are, or we could table it. They're all valid options. I would just say again, from professional experience as a minute taker in the past, the meat of it was who for what and such as when the meeting convened and when it adjourned so that the public knows the policies that a certain governmental body has taken. So it's highly irregular in a minute context to have like a direct transcription or kind of like that in-depth commentary. But it's been done in the past by other neighborhood councils. So it's within, I suppose, if we want to go that route, we could. So is there a motion of some sort, like a table or a motion to amend it or a motion to approve?
I have my hand up. I have a question.
The minute taker also has her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Minute Taker.
Just so you're aware, I would have normally included it, but a lot of the comments, I can't see who's talking. I know what comment you're referring to, but if you even look at the recording, it didn't highlight a name. And that's the issue with some of these other comments. Sometimes the name, it doesn't highlight it. So quick of a blip, I can't catch it. So if you'd like me to just include public comments, or, I mean, I'll do whatever you like, but the reason on that one is because the name did not, I don't know everybody's voice, and the name did not highlight.
Okay, how about, is there a motion to table the minutes?
I still have a hand up. I still need a question.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. DeMeglio.
Yeah, what I don't understand is the minutes were taken before the discussion and not included after the discussion that happened. And what I'm trying to get at is it's about what was said, but it's also about the cover up. Worse than what is said, the cover up of what happened. And that's what we're addressing. So if you don't put it in the minutes, you're covering it up. Basically, that's what you're doing. Let's just call it like it is. Thank you.
Might there be a motion to table the minutes?
I move to amend the minutes.
Okay, what's the amendment?
John DeMeglio second.
What is the
Amendment is
amendment?
to include that there was a rude interruption during the vote. I just want to mention that right after Cynthia Gagne voted that there was a profane interjection.
Okay, is there a second to the amendment?
That was John DeMeglio. He seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to add the amendment, which would say that after Cynthia Gagne made her vote on the item, there was a profane statement. And then the vote proceeded to take place. Afterward, any discussion? Okay, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, I take exception to the use of the phrase cover up. There has been quite a lot of discussion about this particular incident. I don't think anyone is denying that it happened. It has been recorded electronically. We are discussing it presently, and it has been discussed at length in the executive committee and in reference to Dunn, and it's gone back and forth at least as much, if not more, than other instances of this type of behavior have in the past. So I believe that if there's a way that we can address this even more than we have, I don't know what it is, or if that would be a worthwhile use of our time, but I take this incident seriously. I believe it is something to be taken seriously. And I honestly, I object personally to the idea that this is being covered up. And I would suggest that board members be thoughtful about the type of language they use when describing board actions.
I have the right to comment on
Let's
that.
come to
My
let's come-
voice has a right just like anybody.
Let's come to order, Mr. DeMeglio. I did not recognize you. Let's come to order. So I will say that we've been speaking about this topic for quite a while now, and we do have action items to go to. So perhaps we want to move to a vote on the amendment. Would it be all right if we moved for a vote on the amendment?
Call the question.
Dan Dixon has his hand raised and has been raised.
Okay, Mr. Dixon, would you object if we take the vote now?
I don't object to taking the vote. I would like to make sure that the minutes reflect Mr. Goldfarb's wording of profane interjection as the descriptive. There was another phrase used, I think, by you, Mr. Chair, but I think profane interjection is what Craig said, and that I hope the minutes will reflect that. I'm fine with the vote.
Minute taker, did you get profane interjection?
Sorry, I've got to, where is that? Go ahead, please.
I have profane interjection after Cynthia Gagne voted.
Okay, that sounds about right. Mr. Secretary, would you take the roll now? This is on the amendment, and then if the amendment carries or does not carry, we'll move on to the main motion.
Okay, John Barbera,
No,
Vic Christensen, no. John DeMeglio,
come back to me.
Dan Dixon. Unmute, Dan.
Yes, sorry.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
No.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Recuse.
Alex Norman,
No.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
7 ayes. Oh, sorry, John DeMiglio,
I'm gonna vote yes.
8 ayes, 4 nays, 1 recuse. It carries.
Okay. Are there any additions or modifications to the minutes? Okay, if there are no other additions or modifications, Mr. Secretary, would you now take the roll call for this amended motion?
John Barbera,
No.
Vic Christensen, no. John DeMiglio,
Come back to me.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
No.
Melanie LeBrecq, Melanie LeBrecq,
Recuse.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
John DeMiglio,
Yes.
nine ayes, 9 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 recusal. It carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Item number 7 now is the reminder that we have a vacancy on the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council for our business representative. So if anyone owns or works at a business within the boundaries of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council and you'd like to apply to be a member of the board, you may do so, and the applications are due by February 7th. If you know anyone else in your community, maybe a friend or someone else who might be interested, pass the information along. And the application is available on the website, or we could also send you a copy via email. Do you have a question, Mr. DeMiglio?
Yeah, has anybody applied yet?
I'm not sure. Has anyone applied? Does anyone from the bylaws committee know if anyone has applied yet?
Nothing's been put out there that I've seen.
Okay. So to our knowledge, no one has applied yet, so we have about a month to find someone. And if not, we could always extend it. That's a possibility.
Diana had her hand raised, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I simply had my hand raised to say that we had not received any applications.
I will put something together for social media when we get done here tonight, and we'll see what we can get out there.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Let's move on now then to the next item before us. And we're going to try something a little different, and we're going to take action items first from the various committees and then go back and do reports from the committees. So Madam Treasurer, were you going to start with the Finance Committee?
The first item is the MER, And this is out of committee. There were no expenses this month, so it's the exact same thing. The check was just cash for Pollyann Bakery. So 31,266.96 is the balance. Again, this is out of committee, and is there any discussion? No discussion, so call for the vote. Thomas Norman,
Aye, in favor.
Dave Sampirio,
Yes.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Victor Christensen,
Aye.
John DeMaglio,
Yes.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Angela,
Yes.
and Chris, you didn't do your ethics yet, right?
But that's so I know I haven't, and we're still kind of in limbo, but no.
Okay. And Alec, no, and Adrian is absent. Okay. So next is the budget, and same thing. We have unallocated funds for administrative funds, not 2,940 left, and we have 11,619 in outreach unallocated, and 31,266.96. So any discussion? This is out of committee. So call for the vote. Thomas,
Aye.
Dave Sampirio,
Yes.
Victor. Vic,
Sorry, aye.
John Barbera,
Yes.
John DeMaglio,
Yes.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Angela,
Yes.
and that's it. Next. The next on this is a motion to request that we increase the NPG. Well, let me get the motion off of the minutes. The motion is to approve change in fiscal year 2021-22 budget allocation for NPGs from 5,000 that we allocated already to 10,000. 5,000 will come out of the unallocated funds in outreach. So this is out of committee. Is there any discussion? Craig?
Yes. What prompted this?
Because we, right now with COVID existing still and not knowing when it's going to be over, we can't roll over a huge amount of funds. They're only going to allow a small amount again to roll over. So we have funds sitting there, and where we aren't going to be able to do any big events or anything like that, we felt the community is in need right now. So we're better to give to the community than be able to just have the money go back to general funds if we don't use it.
Thank you.
I see John DeMaglio's hand.
John?
Yeah, shouldn't we discuss who we give it to before we,
Well, we're going to, but that's the
before
next
we,
motion. That's the
before
next
we
motion.
take it out of the certain fund? Don't we know, we need to know what it's for before we start shifting money over?
No, the money has to be allocated first, and then we'll discuss the application after this. That's the next motion. That's the way it is on the agenda. So, any further discussion? So we'll call for the vote. Thomas,
Aye.
Dave Sampirio,
Yes.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Victor Christensen,
Aye.
John DeMaglio, John,
No, I voted no.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig, Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Sorry, has anybody applied for these grants yet? Are you saying?
no, no.
Okay,
We haven't even
yes,
distributed it yet.
yes,
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Angela,
Yes.
and then that's it. Okay, so here is the application. Let me try and pull this up here. There you go. So this is a draft. So what we've done is we're opening up the grant applications, and priority will be given to COVID-19, homelessness, and domestic violence. Those are where the biggest needs are right now in our community. With COVID and shutdown, they've seen the highest increase in a long time in domestic violence, especially in this area. LAPD is reporting a big rise in domestic violence, and homelessness is increasing, and they're running out of funds. COVID-19, there are programs out there that are being like drained right now. So we felt that this would be the best served, you know, for in those three departments that our neighborhood council could do for the money. Craig?
Pardon me. If you see me take a while, it's because I have a mic that I have to flip up and down.
Okay.
And that's why it takes a moment. Anyways, I do think we should add in here, and I'd like to make an amendment that we should add in education, since that's been an issue that maybe we should, if students need help or schools need help right now.
Schools are automatically in it. That's just criteria plus the schools. It says on it, submit either your 501c3 or public school status.
Yeah, I know, but it's the priorities are given to COVID-19, homelessness, and domestic violence.
We can add education to it.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
So would that be a friendly amendment?
Yeah, that's a friendly amendment. No problem with that. David?
Yeah, just a question. Is there a limit per applicant, or is just however many applicants and then the 10,000 will be divided?
Right. We can't give more than like 4,000 per applicant, but the thing is, we try in the past, just honest talking here, is try to make sure that everybody gets something. Depends on how many applications we get.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So any other discussion on this? Okay, with Craig's added education on here, I will adjust that on here. Let's see if I can do it on this or not. Nope, it's not going to.
Yeah, with the PDF, you may not be able to edit it live.
It's not going to let me do it. Okay, never mind. I'll have to do it after. But that being said, with Craig's suggestion, we'll add education to the top part of this to include that in the priority. And with that being said, I'll call for the vote. Thomas?
Aye.
Dave?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Victor?
Aye.
John DeMaglio?
Yes.
Dan Dixon?
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie, yes, and Angela.
Yes.
All set. Okay, and that's it for budget and finance. And
Okay. Thank
oh,
you,
and
Madam Chair.
just the dates for this, we're gonna start giving them to outreach for you guys to do a campaign on this and start sending stuff out and have just like a social media campaign to get the application out. And then application deadline is March 31st. And then they'll be awarded at the May 9th stakeholder meeting, but we'll vote on them in April. And then awarded at the May 9th meeting to the people that applied. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Okay, next up in our action items, I believe that we're going to take up the Philip 66 letter now.
Chris has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
Sorry, just wanted to double check. I'm just putting in my calendar right now. You said NPG deadline is March 31st. Sorry, you're muted.
March 31st is the deadline
To receive applications.
to receive applications,
Okay.
yes. And then we will vote on them at our board meeting in April.
Thanks.
Okay, very good. Perhaps on the share screen. Okay, there we go. We're going on the share screen. Maybe we'll go back to the agenda. That might be helpful. And then again, we'll take up now the item 8B1, which is the Philip 66 comment letter, which was worked on by several individuals over the course of a couple of weeks. Mr. Pat Nave, are you here? Would you like to have any opening comments on it?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
The applicant in this case is actually the Port of Los Angeles, who hires the environmental consulting firm that prepares the document. Phillips pays for it, just deposits money with the port, and the port spends it on developing an environmental document. It's put out for comment, which is the period that we're in right now. And then it'll go back when all the comments are submitted. The port and the consultant and probably Phillips will respond at that time with to the comments. There's been a number of comments already submitted to the port. The primary there's a couple of kind of major points that are in the comment letter. Probably the most unusual aspect of this project is that this is a really long-term use of the facility, not by Phillips. It was by Unical before, and then other companies before that, starting in 1919. It's been used as a marine oil terminal and other things. The project that is really being proposed here is listed kind of in the first page. You can see it on the screen that's with you. It's a 40-year lease, a 20-year base term and 2 10-year extensions, a 33% increase in vessel calls, a throughput expansion of almost double. You see it there quite a bit. A 6-year construction schedule. They're replacing a lot of pipes, more than 20 pipes, and doing a lot of tank refurbishment and adding some new tanks, as well as replacing the wharves for the MOTEM's compliance matters. So the MOTEM's compliance matters are primarily for the wharf structures, but then there's all the backland area. Probably the one that the comment letter focuses on the most is contamination in the on the site. Not unusual for marine oil terminals or for pipelines in the port. If you have a pipeline or you have a tank, you probably have leakage, particularly over a long period of time. So that's what this comment letter primarily focuses on.
Okay, I know that there are a couple of different versions of the letter, and there might have been some possible late additions to it furthermore. So would someone from the council like to make a motion to approve? Actually, I guess since we tabled it, is there a motion to take the item off of the table?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to take the item off of the table. It was previously on our council's agenda, and now we're potentially going to take it up again. Mr. Secretary, would you do the roll call to take this from the table and discuss it again?
I believe Thomas Norman moved it, and who was the second?
David Samperio.
Okay, thank you.
I do see Ken Dommy's hand raised. If that's, I don't know if this is the appropriate time for that.
Let's go ahead with the roll call to perhaps discuss it or not.
John Barbera, this is the motion to untable the letter. John Barbera.
Yes.
Vic Christensen, yes. John DeMiglio,
Yes.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
It is unanimous. It carries to be untabled.
Okay, so now we have the opportunity to discuss it or make any amendments that we might want to. And if Mr. Ken Dommey has his hand up, we can take it. Visit Mr. Ken Dommey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, and council members, I just wanted to make a comment as you begin to discuss this and simply make the comment that Phillips 66, we recognize this is an important issue for the council. Since we weren't included in previous conversations that led to this letter, we respectfully request to work with the Port Committee or other entity to provide accurate information and address any concerns that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Would any of our council members like to propose any amendments to the letter? Okay. If no one has any proposed amendments, then we'll take the most recent version, which was posted, since we actually never really discussed the letter. We had the opportunity to discuss it last time it was on the agenda. We didn't really actually get into it. So now we have a version that I think was posted in our agenda packet for the public to out and perhaps make comment on, and for the council members as well.
Point of
Is there
order.
any-
I'm confused which version, because the only version I've seen previous to this was in a meeting from the port. I don't know if that was the approved version came out of the the executive committee, but we never saw that one. So I'm in question of which version is this, and because the only one that's been approved out of committee was the one from the executive committee.
Okay,
I see
now
hands
the
from-
council has the opportunity to amend the letter and introduce a new version if they want to. So I think there was a version included
The
in our
question
agenda.
was, which version is this? Is this the one, is this the one that came out of committee or not?
Okay, thank you for your comment. So the version that was on the agenda packet is an edited version to my knowledge. And we have the opportunity to introduce that one and discuss that one. Does anyone from the council want to discuss the one that was included in the agenda packet?
Mr. President, I see hands from Melanie and from Cynthia, and then from myself.
Go ahead, Madam Treasurer.
So I'm gonna make a recommendation, and I know you aren't gonna like this, but this version here is a new one from what we saw at executive board. We did not see this one, the one we approved prior. This is an edited version because it was tabled and brought back. So my personal feeling on this, because there is questions about this from Phillips that it's not an accurate letter and problems with it from Phillips 66. My recommendation is to take this to a special meeting with the port to get this on time before comment period is over and address this with Phillips 66 there and get the letter appropriate where it's actual factual and it meets, and you meet with the port, because the port has not been consulted, or the Phillips 66 hasn't been consulted at all on this letter. So I think it'd be important to be factual in this letter and not have non-facts in there, and have a meeting that includes them informed on this letter. That's just my opinion. I think it would benefit better to have the letter accurate and, you know, and have a special meeting, board meeting. That way you can approve something to go right away out of that special meeting.
Councilwoman Cynthia Gagne.
Melanie said what I was going to say. If the port says it's inaccurate, we need to make it accurate and then look at it and then talk about it.
Okay,
I see John DeMeglio's hand.
go ahead, Council Member DeMeglio.
Yeah, I guess from what I understand, the Phillips 66 people haven't seen this yet. Is that correct? And also, now that they've seen it, are any of the things listed, are they hitting on that? And are they addressing what was listed now? I just want to know if they offhand, off the cuff, can answer that.
Mr. Vice President.
Sorry, I was muted. I think that with respect to consultation with the port and with Phillips 66, especially when we have someone like Pat Nave working on this on our behalf, we don't necessarily have to, like, if we have specific questions, requests, guidance, whatever, we don't necessarily have to get the blessing of any of the other agencies or bodies on that. I think it might be useful, and if the people involved in building the letter are amenable to that, it's probably a good idea. But I do think it's also important for the committee or the board itself to come up with questions and concerns that don't necessarily get buy-in or validation from the other parties involved. And then to the best of my recollection in the executive committee, although we didn't necessarily see these specific edits, it was understood that these were going to be made and they were based on what we had seen at the time. So this was the next expected evolution of the letter. So I'm going to go leave it with the people who were working on it. I see hands from, actually I see, I'm sorry, Ken Dommy's hand is raised, and I also see Craig Goldfarb and Dan Dixon and Cynthia again.
Okay, go ahead, Council Member Dixon, followed by Ken Dommy.
Unmute, please, Dan.
Sorry, are we on a time element with the comment period?
I believe so. Mr. Nave, do you know when the deadline is?
It's, I think the 19th or 20th, maybe the 17th of this month. It's before you meet again.
Certainly quite adjacent. Thank you.
Okay. Well, two things we could do actually is we could have a special meeting. That's possible. Or we could refer this to the Port Committee with power to act. That's something we could also do. And then we could essentially give the decision making to the Port Committee. So that happens from time to time. Go ahead, Mr. Dami.
Thank you, President. So yeah, the comment period ends on the 19th. And yeah, I think it's important that we have the discussions, and it's not for validation purposes. We truly want to make sure that you have accurate information, and we want to make sure that we address your concerns. So I think those things are overriding more than anything else. If you choose to have a meeting after this one, we would, bring our folks to the table with you and have, all of our experts on this able to answer your questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Cynthia Gagne.
I agree with Mr. Donnie. And I don't believe this letter was ever showed to the Port Committee. I'm on the Port Committee and I don't remember seeing it. And I think Craig said he didn't see it either. I think we should be able to see it and then make sure it's accurate. I don't think we should put out an inaccurate letter, even if somebody thinks it's just whatever hearsay we have to have an accurate letter going out from our committee and then from the board. It's only fair to do that for Phillips 66. They're being open. We should be accurate.
Okay, Mr. DeMaglio.
Go ahead and unmute, John.
Okay, from what I see is they came to this meeting now with three or four people, and they want to inform everybody what they're doing. And I think so far, from what I hear, it's above table. But I was wondering from them, can we eliminate that deadline and go a little further on it? Would that work? So we can get a full discussion and discuss it with Phillips 66 also. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we could request an extension, but I believe that since it's so close, that might be kind of a risky thing to do. Would anyone in the council like to propose either a special meeting or maybe referring the item to the Port Committee with power to act? Those are two things we could do.
We do have one hand up.
Yeah,
attendees.
We have Pat's hand is raised.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Nave.
This is a highly unusual process. The environmental laws contemplate that the applicant, in this case, the Port of Los Angeles, not Phillips, does an analysis, puts it out, comments come in, and then at that point, the applicant, which is the port, will sit down and respond to the comments. The Port Committee might have had a role in this at some point, but the Port Committee had a meeting, two meetings actually on the 21st of December, and this matter was not on the agenda, and either one. I don't make out the agenda for these things, and it was supposed to have a special meeting that never occurred. I'd like to ask if anybody, has seen something in this that they don't agree with, or with that they think is factually inaccurate. If you note, please take a look at it. What we're really saying in this thing is this has been there for a very long time. As far as we've been able to discover through Public Record Act requests and conversations with Port of Los Angeles people, there's never been a CEQA assessment of this a property in 102 years. It's got pollution, known pollution on it. There's nothing in the work order that talks about cleaning it up. There's any number of things. I would urge everybody to read it. It's been posted in accordance with the Brown Act since, I don't know, maybe last Wednesday or Thursday. So, you know, Phillips has probably read it, and so I'm assuming has the council. You know, ordinary flow of work in these kinds of, you know, in environmental comments is you put in your comments, then the port responds with to them with their consultants and probably with Phillips. They've been having consultation meetings all along, so they can respond to it at that time. Port's very unlikely to extend the period of time. They'd like to get to work on this, as would Phillips. And what all the things that you're proposing really, I think, amount to delays.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nave, for reminding us that we did have the document available for several days for the public or the council to review and provide comment on. So we had several comments from board members a couple of different times. And so if anyone else who has not spoken yet would like to speak or propose for us to have a special meeting or for us to refer the item to the Port Committee with power to act, that would be two avenues we could go with, or we could also act on it tonight. Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, I think that, again, due diligence has been done. The significant amount of work has been done on this as well, and that it deserves attention, and that these delays don't necessarily serve our mission or the function of the letter, that we should move forward. I do see other hands from Craig Oldfarb, John DiMaglio, and Ken Dami, although I don't recall the exact order. I think it might have been Ken Dami first.
Yeah, I see that. However, like I said, I think in our standing rules or our bylaws, we kind of like take 2 rounds and then kind of try to move on just for the sake of the other items. So we had several comments from our board members. And Mr. Vice President, given your comments, do you want to move that we take up the item that was, or would you like to move that we take up the version of the letter that was available this past weekend and consider that?
I only commented one time. Do I get another comment?
I'm the same way.
I'd like to remind our panelists, our board members, that you need to be recognized.
How can I get recognized if I have my hand?
Well, you just patiently wait for us to do so. Mr. Vice President, did you want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, so it's been moved that we consider the version of the letter that was posted for us to all review over the weekend. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, so I believe it was moved by Mr. Vice President, seconded by Mr. Thomas Norman, Dr. Thomas Norman. Would anyone like to make comment? The maker of the motion typically gets to go first. Chris, I think you said kind of your point on
I did.
Making the motion. Dr. Thomas Norman, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, just, you know, in the spirit of moving on, it's not going to be mission critical, I think, to the port's operation, you know, perfecting the letter anymore. As somebody who's gone to some of the meetings, you know, working on it, we've done it with, I think, due diligence, research with the port. And it's going to be one of many letters of comments. So rather than spend more time on it, I think we should dispose of it either up or down, and there'll be other, there's a lot going on with the port, so other opportunities. And I hope as a council, we get a little bit, you know, more proficient with the process. I would have preferred that everybody in the port committee, you know, had seen it and things would work better, but we had the holidays in the middle. So that's my justification for moving forward with it tonight. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's have 2 brief comments, please, from our council members, Craig Goldfarb and Mr. DeMeglio. Go ahead.
We
Mr.
have an
Gold.
attendee with a hand up too.
Okay, very good. We'll take him after Mr. Goldfarb. Go ahead.
One, I want to protest that other people, including Pat Nave, was given 2 comments and the board members were not allowed to re-comment. I would like it noted for the record. 2, even though this was posted, I don't know which one was posted, so it was really difficult to review this. This was a long and very complicated thing, and some of the stuff I couldn't find the accuracy of too, also. So I have questions. I don't think just because somebody worked on this that means that they were accurate. We need to check. It needs to be checked for accuracy. And the
Okay, I
comment.
believe there's a Hunt SH in the public who want to make a comment. Go ahead, Hunt SH.
Yes, this is Sean Hunt with Remediation Management for Phillips 66. The question was asked earlier and wasn't sure when I could respond. Sorry, apologize for the delay. The question was regarding the last bullet point. Now, I have not read this in full, but it says disturb seriously contaminated soil and groundwater with no plans to, I can't read as we're moving up, sorry.
Scroll back down a little, please.
Anyways, it's the last action item. Just so you know, we do work closely. We meet quarterly, if not monthly, with the Regional Water Control Board on this site. This site has been highly assessed. It's currently under remediation on a weekly basis. And on top of that, we're currently under an agreement with the Regional Water Control Board to clean up the site. All impacted soil or soil that is removed during this construction project will be characterized and handled accordingly. We do take it very seriously. It is a commitment to the public and the community and to ourselves to maintain environmental responsibility for the site. I personally have been on this site for about 12 years now as a consultant, now as Phillips 66, where I've actually done the assessment out on the site. So I just wanted to let you know that if you look under the Regional Water Control Board guidance, you can find the agreements and the orders that are in place for the remediation action plans that are out there. We're currently have an approved remediation action plan with the site. On top of that, there's a draft CAO that's currently under review as well with the Regional Water Control Board. So just wanted to point it out because the question was asked. If you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to try to help and facilitate in finding those answers or information for you. Thank you for your opportunity.
Council Member DeMeglio.
Yeah, before I was rudely passed up, and that's what I have to say, I was rudely passed up, and it's happened time and time again to me, and I'm getting tired of it, okay? My motion is to extend the deadline, and that was, I had my hand up before Chris Fael spoke, and I like to make a motion to extend the deadline, and I wanted to know, because these people are talking pretty sensibly, Phillips 66 is, and if that's okay with them, let's ask them while they're here.
Okay, so at the previous meeting, we delegated the authority for an extension to be asked to the president. And so I will make a request for the comment period to be extended. However, we have this motion on the table now today, and we've had a significant amount of discussion, which I think is good and healthy. We do have other items before us after this, so I would think that maybe we would like to vote, and I would say if there's no objection, we should move on to the vote.
We do have one hand up in attendees.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Diana, I clicked it again.
Thank you. It's Diana Nave. I just think that there needs to be a little more clarity on the process that is involved when you're commenting on environmental matters. And that is that the board and all of the community, lots of different people will probably submit comments. The comments go to the port, and then there's the opportunity. The next step is for the port and Phillips to respond to those comments. So this is only the beginning of a process. There is a deadline that was extended once by the port to allow us to make sure that we could act at this meeting and the other neighborhood councils to act. I seriously doubt that they will extend it again. I really appreciate the comments that have been made tonight by Phillips. And I think it would be great if Phillips and the port committee sat down and there could be further discussion on this, but I don't think that you should let that stop your submitting comments on the EIR. This is not a question of whether or not you support the project. This is simply comments on the environmental review itself and what should be included. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll now?
John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DeMiglio,
No.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Come back to me.
Cynthia Gagne,
No.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Abstain.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Abstain.
okay, 9 ayes, 2 nays, and 2 abstentions. It carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you to all who participated in the discussion. We appreciate that, and we hope to have further discussions in the future on similar matters. Next up is a possible discussion on the port committee makeup. So over time, I've been watching and participating in the port committee, and I felt like the current committee membership needs to change. And so I proposed the following committee membership makeup with me as the chairperson, and the members are below that in the agenda. So if you don't want to take any action, then it'll just be as it is, and my changes will become in effect. If you want to vote on them and make them concrete via a vote, we could also do that. So if there's a motion to approve them, we could do that, and if not, you'll just be approving my action without a vote, as detailed in the bylaws and the standing rules. Okay, committee member Cynthia Gagne, go ahead.
President Guzman, I was just wondering, why did you take the action that you did by removing Craig as the co-chair? I didn't hear you say the reason you were doing that, other than it was maybe personal?
In my experience participating in the council and in the committee, I think that the change that I'm proposing will allow the committee to operate a little smoother. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead.
Comment. Are you gonna call on me, or do I just blurt out?
Go ahead, Mr. DeMeglio.
Thank you, sir. I would like to also know what this man did for you to get him off the chair, the co-chair, Is it the fact that we don't have free speech anymore? Or is it the fact that Diane Nave and Pat Nave wanted them off? Thank you.
Okay, so again, in my participation in the council and the committee, I think that the structure I proposed and the committee membership I proposed is best for the community and the council. Go ahead again if you'd like, Mr. DeMeglio, and then we'll move on.
My second
to-
comment at this. What actually was the reason that this man was taken off? What did he say to be taken off, or why? I just don't understand why somebody can just say, take him off. I think there's a lot behind it. And it's another one of those, cover up deals that certain people have control over this board and they're pulling the strings. And I'm not going to lighten up on it and I'm going to speak on it as much as I can because that's what's going on. Thank you.
You're welcome. You've spoken now on the matter twice. Council member Cynthia Gagne.
I have just something short. I'm on the port committee and I didn't hear anybody make any complaints. So I don't even see that there is a reason to remove him. He shouldn't be there. He was taken off of the chair of the election committee too, once it was given to him and then it was taken away. It seems like a pattern and I'm not really pleased with it.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Would the council like to make any kind of a motion? Otherwise, the proposal that I have will be in effect then if you're not going to make some sort of a vote for it. Mr. Vice President.
Just a point of information, if you would. What is the administrative procedure for the appointment or the administration of chair positions on the committees? How is that written up in bylaws?
Essentially, I work with the committee and I'm now choosing the structure of the committee and the chairpersonship. And if the council would like to make a modification, then you have the sovereignty to do that. And if you would like to agree with my determination, then you don't have to do any action and it will just be.
I'm sorry, I see Ann's for David Samperio and John DeMeglio and Diana Nave.
Okay, go ahead, David Samperio.
So are we voting on this? You say if there's no comment or anything, that it's just gonna pass, but can we vote on it? Either yes, keep it the same, or no, change it? Is that in order?
Essentially, yeah, if you want to vote on it, we could vote on it and approve it. Theoretically, I suppose you could send it back and I could talk to the committee again about additional changes. I mean, the changes could be month to month. I think that the reason why the president was empowered with such responsibilities was just to make it a little bit more efficient. So that way, but I don't know, that's subjective. I mean, the council can decide whether to approve it or not. It's kind of like a veto, I guess. Essentially, it's like a veto.
Yeah, I guess my suggestion would be to send it back to the committee, the port committee, and talk about it more, I guess, would be my suggestion. And I think we meet the third, is it the third Tuesday of the month? So I think it'd be next Tuesday, I believe.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Dixon.
Initially, I thought you gave us two choices, but it was only one choice. One was to not say anything and the structure of the committee would stand. The other was to vote to approve it. And if we do vote to approve it, would a no vote mean that we favor keeping the structure the way it is now?
Yes, I would say that would be the case, yes. If you were to vote no, if there is a motion, then it would, the status quo would remain in effect. Yes. That's my understanding.
Then if a motion is required, then I move that we do an up or down vote. We do need to vote on this, I believe.
Is there a second?
Just speak here.
Yeah, second.
I haven't spoke on this issue yet.
Chris, Christian, we have two attendees that have their hands up too.
I understand that, but I'd like to take care of the motions first. So, Mr. Dixon, you moved it. Who was the second? Was it?
I guess my motion is to vote to.
I'd like to make a motion also because no one's.
Okay, let us come to Mr. Dixon is working through a motion.
Mr. Dixon is struggling. I'm suggesting that we vote on the change suggested in the agenda for the Port Committee.
Okay, very good. Is there a second?
I'll second. Melanie.
Okay, so it's moved by Mr. Councilmember Dixon and seconded by Madam Treasurer Melanie Lebrecht. Mr. Vice President, would you like to make a comment, and then we could take the public's comment after that?
Yeah, and again, and I believe or I hope that someone from the attendees may be able to clarify further for me. I just want to know if this type of appointment or rescission of a seat is ultimately at the discretion of the office of the president, and is this extension of consent being asked from the board as a courtesy? Is it a procedural issue? Is it something that has to be done? Or is this something that a president typically gets to decide by virtue of their authority?
Yeah, again, before we take up the comment, I would say it's essentially like a veto. So it's the decision that I've made with the experience I have, and the council has the right to overrule it if it thought that that was the best thing to do. But typically, we go through the president's determination. Okay, so we have some members in the public section who would like to comment. Go ahead, Diana Nave, go ahead.
I was just going to give you the language from the bylaws, which I think is what Chris was asking for. The committee chairs shall be appointed by the president, subject to the approval of the board, and may be removed in the same manner. So basically, the process you're going through right now is the process outlined in the bylaws.
Thank you.
Okay, Laurie Jacobs.
Thank you. First of all, administratively, having worked on neighborhood council for many years, I find it much more effective to have a chair of a committee and a vice chair who stands in when the chair is not available. When you have co-chairs, you run into these problems of setting the agenda and difference of opinion. So I really suggest the board consider moving forward, not having co-chairs, but having vice chairs. And the other thing is, as a stakeholder listening to all this, it is really disheartening. There are so many great people on this board, but there's a handful of few who are constantly accusing other people of ulterior motives, puppeteering, manipulating, and it's just really disheartening to listen to this and watch this.
Point of order, please. Point of order.
You can't call point of order on a stakeholder.
Thank you. Thank you. Continue your comment.
Thank you. Okay, I reclaim my time. Thank you. Okay, we'd like to see the board unify, work together, work on neighborhood council issues, community issues, and stop this nonsense of infighting and accusing people of things. Okay, and board members need to understand what the bylaws are, what the ethics are, what freedom of speech are, because you know what? You're losing the faith of the community. It really needs to stop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Let's see if there are any other members of the public that would like to make comment. I don't see any more. Mr. Secretary, would you please take the roll?
So this vote is to accept what is in the agenda.
Yes, exactly.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DeMiglio,
Come back to me.
Dan Dixon,
I'd love to say come back to me, but no,
no?
correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I heard you. Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
No,
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Abstain.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Samperio,
No.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Abstain.
and John DeMiglio.
No.
We have 6 ayes, 5 nays, 2 abstentions. It carries.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, or Mr. Secretary. And thank you to the members of the public that spoke out on the item. Next up, we have the Planning and Land Use Committee with 2 action items. The first one being comments on transportation demand management. Dan Dixon, would you like to introduce that topic?
I will do my best. This from Planning and Land Use, approved in committee, comes this letter to city planning regarding, these are our comments on a part of the city mobility plan for 2035, which is called Transportation Demand Management. It changes how traffic is studied, and briefly, it changes it from the old way of looking at individual intersections and how they are impacted by development to simply, well, simply is not the word, but it changes it to miles traveled. And it's part of the city's effort to move towards more diversity of transportation and less connection, well, less local control, I would say. Our main purpose here, though, is to oppose a section of it which, and this should pique the interest of all of us here in the suburbs, we oppose 2 sections regarding parking. The way it is written, the way the prospectus for the new program is written, there are all sorts of opportunities to reduce parking in residential areas. We do not see that as being a good thing for residential areas, as occurs throughout San Pedro. It's opening the door for eliminating and or reducing parking spaces in new developments. That as you have observed, as infill developments occur, if parking requirements are not protected, then streets will become even more crowded than they are. We are entering this era when more residences can be built on previously single-family lots. And we are entering the era of high-rise development around transportation hubs. And we believe that the notion of people being able to park in their own neighborhoods needs to be protected. And that's really the major complaint and comment. Other than that, there are plenty of good ideas in this transportation demand management program. But we have asked that if the city is serious about reducing the use of private cars, it should make funding for public transportation a high priority. For starters, the city should demand that the Green Line and the Vermont Corridor Line be extended to San Pedro. The city should also consider establishing a public transportation fund and include payment into it as a major mitigation under transportation demand management guidelines. So it's really twofold. We're seeking through our comments to protect levels of parking that have been available in the neighborhoods for generations, but also to prompt the city to look at bringing more mass transit, more transportation opportunities to San Pedro. Those are the comments in the letter, and this comes out of committee.
Thank you, Councilmember Dan Dixon. Would anyone from the council or the public like to make a comment? Raise your hand. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. In brief, we had several board and committee members in attendance with the Metro public online meeting a couple of months ago about the extension of the Green Line, and then really just trying to create and maintain some pressure on the Metro board, as well as our elected officials to keep San Pedro on their radar. And I think it needs to continue and escalate given that we've been we've drawn the short straw or really been ignored repeatedly in the past with these development issues. It seems that land developers have their needs met. Otherwise, these projects don't continue, but the sort of long-term effects, and sometimes are just really written off. I don't think it's that they don't know that we object to some of these, the lack of consideration. It's just that I think politically they can afford to ignore us. And so I would encourage everyone in attendance, as well as anyone you can influence, to keep these projects in this pressure, high profile and high intensity, so that at the very least, if and when they make these decisions that are going to affect our long-term quality of life, that they can't say that we didn't show up to these things, but we really do have to push, because other things they want to do with West Harbor, with all these other developments, with the LA waterfront, if people are stuck in gridlock, if we can't find anywhere to park, there's not going to be any improvement for quality. And some, multinational making money on a restaurant or these attractions making money doesn't help San Pedro if we can't get there, if other people can't even get down the 110. So I support this letter and everything like it. We need to really make this a community priority. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris, for your eloquence. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have a Daniel L. in the public who might want to make a comment. I'm not sure if you want to make a comment on the item or not. I did see your Q&A, and I was going to take that up in the board comment section since you didn't give the comment yourself. And I was also going to ask Melanie to comment briefly on it under public safety. So Daniel, if you want to comment on this item, which is the parking item, go ahead now. And if not, we can address your concern in the future when we get to that item.
Go ahead, Daniel. You're unmuted, but we cannot hear you.
Okay, let's come back to him, then we'll take any more board comment, then we'll come back to him. So Councilmember DiMeglio.
Yeah, I addressed this a couple years ago, and it was voted 100% on a dash line coming down from Park Western to Target and opposite. And it was never carried. They never did anything with it. The last regime that we had in there pretty much let it go. And this has already been addressed, and I want to make that, I still have the paperwork for that, and I like that readdressed if I can. And also do what Chris Viale said, is I agree 100% with that. I mean, you can't just flood that area and have no transportation. It's already flooded with cars already, and we're not even halfway done with the construction down there. It's becoming a ghetto. It's going to become a ghetto. And I talked to people that are already in the view, and I mentioned that, and I state that way, and they say it already is. So we're not making any gains here. I just want to comment on that, and hopefully we take this to a better place. Thank you.
Okay, again, Daniel, did you want to make a comment now on this item, or did you want to wait for your other comments in the Q&A to come up later?
I believe he put in the Q&A that he doesn't have a mic.
Okay. Well, we could read briefly if your comment has to do with this item or if it's the other one. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Secretary, would you like to read his comment starting with in traffic? We have an engineering aspect.
In traffic, we have an engineering aspect of our public city streets. LADOT and street maintenance work together to come up with the safest roadways. However, our mayor came up with his plan called Vision Zero, which tries to emulate what was done in Denmark to try and lower traffic accidents to essentially zero. As part of this plan, and the Bicycle Coalition, which is a powerful group came up with, I'm trying to figure out where some punctuation should go here. Came up with taking lanes away and adding large bicycle lanes for bicycle safety. Vision Zero purposely wants to slow traffic down by adding quote unquote congestion and forcing people to bicycle for transportation. This is why the roads are in the present state.
Oh, I think he said that was some traffic officer comment, but he wanted to quote it. Okay, well, thank you, Daniel. We're doing our best here to take comments in the written form. It's we're being flexible here, which I appreciate. So thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Daniel, for giving that comment in the Q&A.
If I could, just for completeness, so people know where this came from. It's regarding parking problems and traffic density issues in general. Please see the following comment, which is what I just read, from LAPD Traffic Division South Officer Andrew Rowe last month. So just for a complete citation.
That's excellent. Very good. Mr. Vice President.
Yes, just a point of clarification that the Vision Zero is in fact a global initiative which has been adopted by the city of Los Angeles, but as well by the county and a lot of the cities that make it up. So it is not necessarily a creation of or by the current mayor.
Okay. If there are no other comments, go ahead and call for the vote now and take the vote, Mr. Secretary.
Okay, John Barbera.
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DiMeglio. John DiMeglio.
I said, come back to me. He said, come back to him.
Did.
I said, come back. Can you hear me?
Somehow I got muted again. Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Alex Norman,
Yep.
Thomas Norman, Thomas Norman,
He's not here right now.
he's not, okay. David Semperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
John DeMiglio,
I heard a yes, but John, you're really low.
he said yes?
I believe so.
Okay, Thomas Norman, are you back?
Yeah, as a point of information, Alec, is he going to come back or did he leave the meeting?
I'm gonna assume he left the meeting, but I could check right now.
Oh yeah, he is not on right now.
Okay, well, we'll put not voting, and then if he later says that he left the meeting, we'll just strike him from being in the roster at that point.
Got
But for
it.
now, just put.
What? Did Alex just say something?
Oh, I just said, yeah, that's confirmed that, yeah.
Okay. Okay, then. If we don't include Thomas Norman, it is unanimous with 12 ayes.
Okay, very good. Move on now to the second planning item, which is comment on the negative. I believe it's on the, oh yeah, the screen sharing stopped for a minute. But I think it's on the mitigated negative declaration on the Gibson project. So not sure who wants to present that from planning. Would you like to, Diana, or is someone else going?
I believe.
Yes, I'll present it. Thank you. This is a motion to approve the letter commenting on the negative declaration for a proposed container parking lot on John Gibson Boulevard. And it came out of the committee with 8 yes votes and 1 no vote. So a private party is proposing to build a storage yard for shipping containers and truck chassis on that long, narrow lot that's just a little bit north of the police station between John Gibson Boulevard and the 110 freeway. Once built, the owners plan to either lease it out or to sell it. They plan to construct about 400 container parking stalls where they would be able to stack containers 3 high when they're filled and either 5 or 6 high if they're empty. They're saying it's for about a total of about 2,000 containers. They will have 2 top loaders to use to stack them. The operation is projected to generate about 466 truck trips per day. And they plan to be able to operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They would pave 9 acres, which would cover about half of the property, and install high mast lighting and 6 30 feet high retaining walls, moving 3,500 cubic yards of earth in order to do this. Some of the earth is known to be polluted. So the letter does not support or oppose the project. Rather, it's a comment on the level of environmental review being conducted. When you were talking about Phillips 66 a minute ago, you were talking about a mitigated negative deck. This one is simply a negative declaration. The negative declaration basically says that there are no environmental impacts. So the comment letter raises concerns about some potential environmental impacts that we feel should be studied, including traffic, contaminated soil, stormwater runoff, and the impacts of the retaining walls, the high lighting, and the container stacking. The letter also suggests 2 mitigations that they could impose. One would be repaving of Gibson Boulevard in that area, and the other would be undergrounding of utilities along Gibson Boulevard. There are at least 2 proposed amendments that I know that will come forward, and I don't know how you want to handle this, Chair. You may want to take them first or just wait as hands arise. That's my overview of the letter.
Okay, so the letter that was before us, that one's out of committee though?
Out of committee.
Okay, so there are some potential amendments perhaps. Let's take Madam Treasurer's comment first.
Yeah, I have no amendments, but this is like them doing this and stacking the trailers at that location. That is going to be so bad for that channel Gaffey, like exit for the freeway backed up. That gets so bad right now with trucks coming down there and trying to turn and get over to Gibson Boulevard to go down to the port, that if they start using that exit, that is going to have such a nightmare of traffic backup on the 110 as well as on Channel. And as it is right now, Channel is so tore up in that area. Imagine what that number of trucks are going to do to that area and tear up the road. It's going to be bad. And the environment portion of it is going to be hazardous.
Okay, Mr. Vice President.
Thanks. Without having as much personal knowledge of the traffic situation there or being an expert in logistics or construction, whenever I see a project that includes this kind of renovation and construction, things like that, and you're getting the notion is being suggested that things don't need to be checked, my first impulse is to check them, that these environmental rules exist for a reason, and it's because when we don't look into these things, important things slip by. I am sensitive to the idea that the people who develop these projects and run them need to make money in order for them to exist, and that this would probably, despite whatever complications for traffic, would be a strategic advantage to logistics in the port complex. But at the very least, with respect to this letter and the negative declaration, whenever they tell us you don't need to look into this, I think we should look into it. If it costs a little more, I think they'll make their money back, and it's worth it to the community to make sure that, for instance, if polluted soil is possibly being moved, that we make sure one way or other if that's happening. Thanks.
Dr. Thomas Norman.
Thank you. I want to recommend an amendment based on the comment of the previous speaker, if that's in order.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Is there a way to paste it, or should I just read it? And apologize for my internet going down.
I believe that the amendment that you're proposing is listed as amendment number 2 in the agenda packet, and maybe Chris could put that up.
Yeah, got it.
Actually, I think Melanie is sharing the screen.
Oh, Melanie, put it up.
Okay, Diana, there's another one in here, an amendment. Oh, okay, I see it, number 2. Okay, let's.
There's a proposed, we'll call it amendment number 2 by Dr. Thomas Norman. Is there a second on it?
Let's see.
Let him say what the amendment is.
Yeah, that's too small.
That's way too small.
Yeah.
Zoom view, zoom that to like 300.
Yeah, can you zoom in? There you go.
That's better. All right. If you're ready now, it should read, this developer has access onto Gibson Boulevard only because the port sold a strip of land along the west side of the boulevard to them in about 2017. Prior to that sale, the parcel was completely landlocked. When the port sold it, it knew or should have known that the development of the parcel would create impacts on the streets, utilities, and rail usage. We therefore believe the following mitigations should be included in any project approval, and this belongs right after the mitigation required heading. Oh, yeah, and it's all there now. You can see.
Okay, so you're moving to add that amendment. Is there a second?
I second, Melanie.
Okay, so it's moved by Thomas Norman, seconded by Melanie LeBrecq. Seems like the amendment is kind of like a clarification of what's to follow. Not, is there any discussion on that, or do we want to just vote on the amendment since it's pretty self-explanatory?
Vote on it.
Okay, there's no objection. We'll take a vote on the amendment then, and we'll continue discussing the topic as a whole.
Okay, on the amendment, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DiMiglio,
Abstain.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Abstain.
Cynthia Gagne,
I also abstain.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
10 ayes and 3 abstentions. It carries.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Craig Goldfarb.
Okay. To address some of the things, I think this is a win-win. This property is polluted and has been standing out there unremediated and would probably be unremediated if they don't go ahead with this. Everything, but with the exception of the traffic impacts, is stuff that is the normal course of pulling your permits be taken care of. You have, if anybody ever looked, which I think some people didn't, at the whole proposal, you have to pull the water permit, the wastewater permits, the stormwater permits, and all those, and you have to test that. They gave 4 pages of the testing procedure, and it still had to go back to the port for approval on remediating the soil. This is a priority project. We have serious problems in the port still, as I'm sure David Sampiero and John DiMiglio could point out. And to address what Melanie was saying, this is a right turn onto into the facility from Gibson and another right turn out of the facility from Gibson. It is highly unlikely they're going to be taking a right turn on Channel. Regardless of that, I see tons of traffic making right turns on Channel onto Gaffey to go over to the warehouses. So though I have some concern about the traffic, this is a facility that's meant to transfer containers onto trucks to alleviate some of the problems that are being seen in the communities of Wilmington, which has been taking the brunt of this. So I think this is a win-win for our community, for Wilmington, and it also will alleviate a major pollution problem. Thank you.
Thank you for commenting. Councilmember DiMiglio and then Dan Dixon after that.
Yeah, my concern is that the property was supposedly sold, and it was sold in 2017, which was before the backup of all this cargo now. That was before that happened, so it was okayed before this happened. they fell in place because we do need the space at this point, and we probably will for the next couple of years. So I don't know if, I mean, every space right now is, according to our governor and our mayor and everybody else, they want every space they can, every piece of property designated to storing containers. So they get them off the streets of Wilmington and wherever they're stacking these things up in the streets. So at this point, it actually works as we need it. We need it right now, but I don't know what the long run's going to come out of this after, or if this port is ever going to come back to normal with the amount of containers coming in. That's going to have to be seen. I can't. Okay, that's my comment on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Dan Dixon.
You're muted, Dan.
Unmute, Dan.
Sorry, I'll get this someday. I'd like to propose an additional amendment of mitigation that the port should construct crossing protection at rail crossings into the terminal across John Gibson Boulevard, freeway on and off ramps, or in the vicinity of Channel Street and John Gibson Boulevard. Concurrently, the port should file for quiet zone status for those crossings so that trains do not need to blow their horns when crossing those roadways. This is something that can only be done by the property owner, in this case, the port. And it would be, I believe, a powerful mitigation for the community if whatever happens on this property, the rail crossings are improved and protected so that Federal Railway Agency administration requirements for horn usage by trains be eliminated. The trains could run without horns through those intersections. And I would favor that from all around the port, but particularly at these intersections as listed.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Is that proposed amendment in the packet, or did you just read that yourself?
It is in the packet.
Okay, let's pull that up. I don't know who's doing screen share, but can you pull that amendment up and then let's read it again verbatim without sans any comment.
It's at the bottom. If you just keep scrolling down, you'll find it.
Go ahead.
It's in red ink.
On the letter?
Scroll down. Yeah. Keep going. There it is.
Yeah, blue ink.
Okay.
So go ahead and read that one more time then, Dan, and then we'll.
The proposed amendment to the letter says, in addition, to mitigate rail horn noise, the port should construct the necessary crossing protection at the rail crossings into the terminal opposite the John Gibson Boulevard freeway on and off ramps and in the vicinity of the Channel Street and John Gibson Boulevard intersection. Concurrently, the port should file for quiet zone status for those crossings so that trains do not need to blow their horns when crossing those roadways.
Okay, is there a second to that proposed amendment?
Second.
Okay, there was a second by Dr. Thomas Norman, I believe. So that one seems relatively self-explanatory as well. I think the train noise has been covered a lot in our previous issues committee and other committees. So if there's additional comment, we could have it now. Otherwise, we might want to vote on that amendment as well.
I see no hands.
Okay, go ahead then, Mr. Secretary.
On the second amendment, which is on the screen for those who can see the screen, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DiMiglio,
Yes.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Abstain.
Cynthia Gagne,
I'm also going to abstain again.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Semperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
11 ayes, 2 abstentions, it carries.
Very good. So now we're taking the letter as amended. So we can discuss it further if we'd like to, or we could have additional amendments if anyone wanted to amend it further. We'll look for hands from the council or the public. Okay, go ahead, Council Member Thomas Norman.
Was Councilmember Goldfarb before me? Because I wanted to call the question, but not if somebody.
What did you say? Go ahead.
I was going to call the question also, so.
Okay, very good. If there's no objection, let's move on to a vote then.
Well, who's considered first and second?
Oh, on the original was out of committee, and then we recorded
Okay,
both of them.
gotcha. Okay, on the complete letter as amended, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DiMiglio,
Come back to me.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
Abstain.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Semperio,
No.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
it's John DiMiglio,
We can't hear you. Your volume's really low.
This is a hard one because it's a private company that's doing this. And I don't see it's benefiting.
John DiMiglio, what is your vote?
I'm trying to explain my vote, sir. Can
It's
I
yes,
explain
no, or
You
abstain.
vote for me, Vic. You want to vote for me?
No, I'd like you to vote instead of
I'm trying
explaining.
to explain my vote, Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Go ahead, Mr. DiMaglio. Simply just say yes, no, or abstain, please.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Mr. Secretary, with the full
Okay,
count.
that's 9 ayes, 3 nays, and an abstention. It carries.
Okay, thank you. Once again, I thought that was a very meaty topic and a good policy discussion. We'll move on to the next item. And we have, so now we're going to the committee reports. So we've disposed of the actions, and just a quick time check, it is now about 8:30. And so we're going to the committee reports, and we'll start with our executive committee report. Mr. Vice President, would you like to give the executive committee report?
Sure. So we had a pretty robust discussion about the administration and conduct at our meetings, obviously with respect to some of the things that happened at our board and stakeholder meeting last month, as well as kind of ongoing concerns. And so I'll let you, everyone can, if you'd like more clarification, I don't want to just read the bullet points to you, but please peruse those. We discussed access to speak, that is clarifying and reviewing the controls that are given to us by Zoom, and making the distinction between when and how attendees are allowed to speak and panelists as well. So just, and this is actually the best time to mention that, as an attendee, you will be manually, that is, there'll be an overt action taken to allow an attendee to speak, and likewise at the end of a attendee's given time, they will be have that permission removed and be muted. So going forward for everyone, having your hand raised electronically, and if not, then on camera, will be important to keeping track of who is going to speak when. And it should be assumed that when you have made your statement, comment, or question, that you will then be muted and that your turn will be over. And that we are going to be more stringent about enforcing that, at the very least for the sake of being able to follow what's being said, but also just for the overall tone and structure of the meetings. We spent some time looking at the nuts and bolts of Zoom, and again, some of these things won't necessarily need to carry over if and when we ever get back in person, but it's, you know, we're asking everyone to take into account whether you're considering making a comment or question based on things that have already been said or asked, that is not being repetitive or redundant, and that being respectful, obviously, in terms of response or retort, that we seek recognition from the chair, you know, the standard meetings. But with respect to Zoom itself, we should all assume that one or more of the executive committee will be acting as administrators for the Zoom meetings, and that when it is not your turn to speak, when you have not been given the floor, you will be muted without warning, that we're not going to go back and forth, that your microphone will be turned off. But I think that, you know, even this evening, it's shown that we're able to smooth things out and have a more harmonious, if contentious, exchange. Does anyone have any questions about the bullet points there? Again, it's like I'm not one for reading the PowerPoint to everyone, but yeah, I mean, a lot of these things, if you look at the stakeholders can speak freely, has been covered in the comments this evening. Board members cannot make personal attacks in this meeting. A lot of these things that we discussed and sort of reasserted are really the basic professional rules of conduct in these meetings anyway, things that we would and should be expected to observe were we in person. And obviously from time to time we need reminders about, but there's really nothing new here other than in our understanding of how the Zoom version of that looks. But I do see John DeMeglio's hand raised. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, you know, all night long I have my hand up, and the president, Christian, avoided me all the time. So you create a problem that way. I'm here to speak. That's what people voted for me. That's why people voted for me, to speak. Okay, maybe I spoke once. Let everybody speak. Maybe I have another a second. We're allowed to do it twice. Why is this board so adamant at not letting the board speak, and then they let people in the audience speak first? Does that make any sense? I don't care. I wish everybody that comes to these meetings get a chance to speak, but not to speak and badmouth people on different subjects. They need to check this stuff. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Mr. Vice President. Continue with the report, but I don't know if that was very relevant to the report. However, I would say that Mr. DeMeglio, your comments were heard and you were recognized several times, and you'll continue to be recognized if you'd like to speak in the future. Go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Yeah. Really, I mean, honestly, to boil it down, and again, if people have questions on specific bullet points here in the report, we can field those. But really, it's we spent some time revisiting, reestablishing, and reasserting the basic rules that we've been asked to and really insist on having observed back way back in the old days when we were in person, just with respect to personal and professional courtesy. We now have an electronic version of that that's remote. And we're really just asking everyone, whether there be an attendee or a panelist, to first police yourself and to make an attempt to be professional, concise and kind in your commentary, but then to understand that there will be some arbitrary structure imposed over the entire meeting by the administrators. And that we will attempt to adhere to the rules, both our bylaws and of Dunn's direction, to the best of our ability going forward.
Mr. Secretary, were you going to make a comment on Zoom, or was that going to happen later?
Well, the next two are on Zoom. One is we are looking to kind of get some training materials, cheat sheet type of things, similar to the one I sent out about recording to the cloud to the board members and chairs, to try to help people work with Zoom when they're, mainly the committee chairs, when they're in their meetings. So I think Chris and I are probably the two POCs for that. We're gonna, see what we can come up with to help people use Zoom. That's the second item. The third item is for those, for the committee chairs. Please remember to record your Zoom meetings to the cloud. There are two options, to the cloud or to your local computer. So we need to record those to the cloud. They do get sometimes to be pretty big files, and that way it will also not use up your disk space. So just please remember to do that.
And I would also assume that recording to a personal device wouldn't necessarily comply with the Brown Act in terms of transparency. If people don't have, if we recorded the cloud, once Victor is able to put everything on YouTube, then essentially it's as transparent and as immediate access to that recorded record as possible. If it's on someone's laptop, for instance, and something happens to it, then we've kind of let everybody down.
Mr. Vice President, does that conclude the executive committee report?
I believe so. Yes, it does.
Okay, very good.
There is one small item that we kind of went over before about the reordering or reformatting of items on the agenda, where we're doing motions first and then reports. I don't know if you want to talk about that anymore or leave it at what we already have.
Actually, I'm sorry, I forgot about that, honestly, because the executive meeting, not for nothing, was, I think, very productive and pretty substantial. That was one of the things that, so what we're doing, in fact, this evening, is an experiment with a different format where, in order to get all of the action items out of the way, that is, all of the things that absolutely must happen during the meeting, we're trying to organize into one section so that if we're going to have to vote on things, whatever they happen to be, whether they're coming out of committee or otherwise, that we organize those as a block, and therefore reports and other non-action discussions can happen separately. And this is an attempt to make time for all of the most important actions without making arbitrary blocks of time that would be very difficult to maintain. So we're basically making sure that every vote that needs to be taken gets taken, and that if other things, other discussions can then happen with whatever time's left over, we don't really miss out or have to table anything simply because we run the clock out. And so we'd like actually feedback from everybody if this format works for them, if they feel like everything's being addressed and it's at least as easy to follow as we were doing before.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice President. We have several items left, and it's 8:40 now. I know that I think personally I would like to hear from the homelessness liaison. We haven't heard from that report in a while, so maybe we can get to that. Go ahead, Madam Treasurer, with the Budget and Finance Committee.
There's no report really, because we did all the motions that we did at the committee, so we can move on to the next committee.
Okay, very good. The next committee is the Port Committee, so we reorganized the membership structure earlier, and we'll have our meeting next Tuesday. So thank you to the current committee members for participating, and we do speak about some very good topics, and we look forward to presenting more items in the future. Next up, we have Youth and Outreach Committee.
Youth and Outreach was dark in December. Our next meeting will be Monday, January 24th at 5:30 p.m.
Very good. Planning and Land Use Committee.
Thank you. At the last joint committee, we had an update on Altasea, and the details are in our committee report if people are interested in it. I have 3 additional updates that I think would be of interest to this committee. First is that we've received notification that Starbucks has applied for a drive-through and sit-down coffee shop at 281110 Southwestern. They plan to tear down the existing building. We've invited them to the next planning committee, but I've got no reply from them yet. Second thing is the building and safety. They did open a case regarding the Viper rentals, but it appears that the only thing they're pursuing is the height of the fence. We are still waiting for a response back, however, from the planning department, who we also sent a letter to, because really the CPIO is under them. Third thing is the connectivity plan. The port received 10 responses to the connectivity plan RFP. They are reviewing them and anticipate selecting a successful bidder in February and having a contract in place sometime in March. So the next joint committee meeting will be Wednesday, January 26th. There will be a presentation on Beacon's Landing, which is the proposed supported housing in the 300 block of Beacon Street. And then the next Northwest meeting will be February 9th, if we can get Starbucks to come. That's it. And I have no report from bylaws because we did not meet.
Okay, very good. Oh, was there a question, Cynthia? Council member Cynthia Gagne.
Sorry, Diana, 28110 Southwestern, where is that? What's the crossroad on that?
That, I'm trying to remember.
It's the former US Bank.
US Bank.
branch.
Oh, okay.
Is that the Albertsons or is it the one?
It is Albertsons.
Albertson Shopping Center.
That
Okay,
branch has been
Albertsons.
closed for a couple of years.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
John DeMeglio, I see.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
That was my question also, where that was going to be located. And also now we have, I think, the Del Taco that is, I don't know what's happening to that, but it's fenced off and then the logos are off of it.
What? No
Yeah,
Del
quite-
Taco.
Jack in the Box bought the entire thing and they're going to do whatever they want with it.
Okay, that's fascinating. Let's, I think, Madam, oh wait, no, we have Councilmember Dan Dixon. Go ahead with issues now.
Just in brief, there were some, at our meeting, there were some public comments on items that will certainly be brought up at future meetings. Happy to say that a temporary agreement has been reached to allow the ball fields on Gaffey Street to continue in their present form for at least 6 months. Everybody involved seems to be working with goodwill to for the benefit of the kids in the community. And apparently I just want to say work is continuing to finalize the skate park under the freeway on Channel Street. What I did find out from the council office is that that will be a public facility, but it is not defined as a park at this point. But Recreation and Parks will take it under advisement and will review at a later date, making it a public park. This impacts perhaps our reaction to the proposal for a marijuana dispensary, which is proposed on Channel Street, on Gaffey Street. And we'll be following up on that. Thank you.
Okay.
I see
Madam
hands-
Treasurer,
Oh, I'm sorry. I also, in addition to Melody, I see hands from Diana Nave and Lori Jacobs and attendees.
and so let's take Laurie Jacobs and then Diana Nave.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan, for good work on the ball field. Do you know when they're gonna fix those darn plates on Myler? How much longer are they gonna almost puncture my tires?
It's if I may answer that, it's a good question. It's an AT&T project. It has to do with their finally getting internet speeds improved in our area. A little too late as far as I'm concerned, but my question is, who pays for the repaving of Myler? Is it AT&T or is it the city? Since AT&T is a utility and they have all sorts of arcane agreements about who pays for what, but I'll attempt to find that out. Thank you.
Diana Nave.
Thank you. Dan, I wanted to go back to something that John DeMiglio raised earlier in this meeting, and that was the dash line request to run down to Target. And I'm just wondering, is that something you're going to put on the Issues Committee agenda, or do I need?
Well, what I'm trying to do now, this question was proposed some time ago. The city did give us a response. I need, for John's sake and all of our sakes, to find the written response from the city. It was basically a no because of the complications involved, but we can continue to look at it as a future project, but I need to find in my Gmail the city response. It was a 1 or 2 paragraph response to the proposal. It was discussed in our committee at the time, but I have to find it in writing to make it real.
Very good. Does that conclude the community issues report then?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Madam Treasurer, would you take up the public safety report? And also, if you can, address any past work you've done relative to Daniel L's comments that he gave us in the chat and in email, briefly, if you can.
Okay. Basically at our meeting, we went over a lot of the basic stuff that we did last meeting about the public safety town hall that we had regarding the Proud Boys event. And basically the same thing. We're very pleased with the turnout, very pleased with the outcome. We seem to get a lot of diversity and conversation that developed a good conversation coming out of it, and one that needs to continue in the community. One thing that we talked about, Dan, is that we want to do another one, a town hall, but we want to do it with the city involved with Rec and Park to challenge some of these problems with the parks in San Pedro and in the Northwest area, and talk to Rec and Park about different situations. And so we might want to have a joint meeting between the two committees to further discuss this going forward. As far as Mr. Luther, on regards to some of the things that you addressed, the homeless person that's on the bench has been addressed several times with the LAPD. I personally and others have contacted and reported at 311. It's been reported. There's a site that's called LA Hop that you can report homeless encampments on, and we reported it there. The SLO, Dan Brown, is no longer our SLO, and we've been vacant an SLO for the past couple of months. And we may not be appointed a new one until possibly February now. So we're down an SLO for our area. LAPD has basically said that they're kind of hands off on a lot of the homeless areas right now. And it's even going to get worse because they've got a new program that's called Circle that's going to be, LAPD is going to gradually not handle any of the homeless stuff. And it's going to be this nonprofit agency. When you call 911, your calls are going to be diverted to them to come and handle a lot of the homeless calls. The other thing is with the fruit stands on the corner in neighborhoods. For several weeks, right in front of my house, I had the fruit cart guy. And then in front of my neighbor across the street had the fruit cart guy. And then he went up to Amelia, our kind of Myler area across from the park, and he was there for a while. And then he ended up over on Westmont area. And I've talked to Officer Brown and LAPD about it, and they said that there's nothing they can do about him. There are certain ordinances that they have, but they've loosened them up because they have a right to earn a living. And so any sidewalk, as long as they aren't blocking traffic, they can be on. They have the right of way for it. The other problem is with the guy in the Toyota truck, same thing. He's been there for like a year in front by Butch's. And he's been reported constantly by several people over at Harbor Highlands, and people over here have reported it. And I've talked to the SLO and they just seem reluctant to do anything. He's also been reported to LA Hop, and hopefully they've been out there and gradually will get him to take services or go into safe parking. So that hopefully is addressed the stuff for him. I see he's raised his hand. There's also,
I believe we established earlier that he doesn't have a
doesn't have
microphone,
a
and
mic, so
Yeah.
I don't,
I would recommend that he be in contact with the community issues and public safety committees, and I think I forwarded you his contact already.
Cynthia has her hand up, and so does Chris Vallier.
Okay, it's 8:52. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Hey, real quickly, Melanie, the guy with the truck, the food truck, I thought Mr. L said that he didn't have a license, or he wouldn't produce a license saying that he was legitimate and his food was clean. So maybe we could report him to a health authority.
You can, but it's going to be a long process to get somebody to come out and do something.
I hate to see somebody get really sick from bad food, salmonella poisoning or something.
Unfortunately, LAPD doesn't enforce that though. It has to be the health inspector that comes out for those, whoever enforces the permits from Food and Drug Administration, I guess, for the permitting.
Oh, okay.
And Chris?
Thanks. Yeah, that would be either city or county health, depending on where you park. And I just wanted to add, what I found works maybe slightly better, or it's another avenue to approach, is that the My LA 311 app is a good starting place for at least tracking down whom to direct your comments for like illegal dumping or that sort of thing. In terms of parking, I know that with the COVID restrictions, it's been sort of back and forth in terms of parking enforcement for what is technically an abandoned vehicle. What I found is an online complaint form. I know that in the past, often you have to call in, and I personally have had mixed luck with getting a human response, but I would have put the URL up, but it's actually very long. If you do a Google search for online stored and abandoned vehicle complaint, you'll get a web page that allows you to enter the information, VIN number, license plate, things like that. You might even be able to upload a photograph, but I found that it's at least a way quickly to submit a report for an abandoned vehicle. And then it must go into whatever database they have. And that way, if you don't get your phone call answered, or you're not sure someone's going to forward that, at least you know that you've made it somewhere and you'll get a confirmation email. So that I found that to be a useful tool, at the very least, if you only have a few minutes and maybe you have a repeat offender.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Does that conclude the public safety report?
Yes.
Okay, what's the next committee? I know that we don't have sustainability here, so I don't think that'll be given this.
Christian Science or Hank, there wasn't one.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, you want to give an update on the Christensen Science Center?
Nothing substantial. The only thing right now is that there is a new STEAM coordinator, Laura Schaffenacker. And Minute Taker, I will give you that spelling because you're probably not going to get it right. I don't think anybody would just hearing it. We spoke a little bit when she first came on a month or two ago, and she is going to try to get the advisory committee meeting started again, but unfortunately I haven't heard anything since then, so I don't know what the status of that is at this point. So that's all for today.
Okay, liaison reports, homelessness liaison, please. We would love to hear it.
Thank you. I was waiting to be unmuted. So the CD15 working group normally meets a week before this meeting, so I have all kinds of data, but they're meeting actually tomorrow night. And it's going to be a very interesting meeting. On the homelessness liaison report, if you're interested, you can email and get the link to the meeting. They're going to have a lengthy discussion on Busquino's motion on 4118, addressing camping on the streets and related topics. And so if you're interested, it should be a nice, robust discussion. Also, Melanie, thank you for really pushing the lahop.org portal. If you see somebody repeatedly on the streets, if you go into the portal, you can do it anonymously if you prefer to. Give them as much information as possible, what they're wearing, the times of day you see them, a description of the person, and that goes right to Harbor Interfaith, and they deploy an outreach team as soon as they can. And they'll make at least 3 calls out to that location in case they go out there and the person's not there. But that's the best first response in dealing with that. And I already mentioned the homeless count. We need you, we need you, we need you. On the report, you can see there's a list of the people who are going to be discussing this 4118. And that's really an important topic because it probably will end up being on the ballot. But for those of you that have expressed concerns about people you see who are experiencing homelessness, it's a very complex topic. There's no simple answers, but the more you get involved and learn about ways that we could help, and I'm glad the NPG grants hopefully will add to the resources available. You can read through the report. I've also talked about seniors are now becoming one of the largest demographics of people becoming homeless. It's really sad, along with domestic violence. And so the emergency housing vouchers that are out now from the federal government, first priority is to domestic violence and people fleeing from domestic violence and seniors. And now, unfortunately, because of the surge in COVID, the shelters are having a problem. The Bridge Home that normally can house 100 people had an outbreak, including the staff. They're down to only about 25 people. They're under quarantine. And this is happening at a lot of shelters. Because this is so contagious, it's spreading a lot faster at the encampments. And then just one other thing, tomorrow because I could talk forever on this, but at the County Board of Supervisors meeting, they're addressing tomorrow looking at the RV encampments in the unincorporated areas. And that's like the Harbor Gateway area where it's not LA City, it's right in that unincorporated area. At last count, there were 380 RVs dilapidated with people living in them, sanitation problems, drug rings, sex rings. And so I'm glad that these things are being looked at. And the other thing is obviously that the lack of affordable housing. So we all need to pay attention to the legislation that's going to be coming up. And I'd be glad to lead anybody to information if they want to research things, SB 9, SB 10, Diana's touched on these things. You guys have talked about how they're going to affect our community. The fact is I'm afraid the homeless count numbers are not going to be pretty, and it affects all of us. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. I hung out this long at the meeting so I could give the report. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, guys.
You're very welcome, Lori. It is 8:59. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? It's actually 9 o'clock now. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Go ahead and take the vote, Mr. Secretary.
I got the first for Melanie, but who was the official second?
David.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
I'm just writing real quick. Okay, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DeMiglio,
Yes.
Dan Dixon,
Yes.
Greg Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Alex Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
David Zamperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
It is unanimous.
Very good. Okay, good.
Christian, as long as you're still here, I had a statement to read when the next meeting starts, since it was not. Oh, well, I guess he just decided he was going to do what he wanted to do. Y'all have a good day.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.